Hey guys, this is Cardell, and the moderator on PcBuildHelp subreddit. We have a few questions that come in, and I just figure I put together a video to show how to answer these questions so that we don't have to keep replying to the same thing. We do have a wiki on there. I highly suggest if you have questions, watch or go read the wiki. It's gonna have like some really common things, like as people come in and there'll be a flood of, say, my computer, I press the power, it turns on, the fans turn on for a second and then shut off. Those kind of questions that just they seem to come in batches for some reason. Uh, that's kind of interesting, but as they come in and we get a lot of them, I usually add the solutions or things that you can do to troubleshoot it in the wiki. So make sure you go check that out. So let's go ahead and show you how to use userbenchmark.com. Now the reason I show you this is been getting a lot of people asking, they want to do like a certain game with high FPS, or they actually say, for example, the latest one was GTA 5 with 60 to 120 FPS. So I'm going to show you how to use the site to actually figure out what kind of system you're kind of aiming for. So let's go ahead and pop into a 2060 Super. So you go to userbenchmark.com in the GPU, and you scroll down or search for the 2060 Super, and you click the actual video card. The information on this screen is the effective FPS. Now this is, as you do their benchmarks, they basically take the performance that you get with that card and doing their little tests and stuff with their benchmarks, and they use that, I'm assuming, in some calculation with maybe something that they've done to generate those numbers. And so this is kind of roughly what you should get in these games. So 110 with a 2060 Super. So that's a great way. Now for the other side of it, you have to take it with a big grain of salt, is the choose game. So if there's enough people that have submitted games, this will show up. Some cards don't have this. Like I think the 1660 Super does not have too many of these. So you click choose game, and we'll choose Grand Theft Auto 5 from the list. And here we have two pie charts, the game settings and the resolution on the right. This is what you can use to filter down through all the submitted results. So we'll go to 1080p because a lot of people are doing 1080p, and we'll do like the max settings, right? So at the max settings, we have 45 samples with a 2060 Super averaging at 94.1 FPS. So while that is good, if I go, let's just see what happens. If I go down to the high, you can see it drops to 89, and then on the low it's up to 144. So going from max to high, it should not drop, it should actually increase. So that's why I say take this with a grain of salt. However, you can actually pair this with your processor. So if you're getting a 3600, you can click that processor. There's 9 entries of people saying that they got anywhere from 130 to 80 FPS. So what this is I'm a guy who has a 2060 and a 3600, and I say in Grand Theft Auto I get 90 FPS on 1080p max details. I type it in on their website. That's what these numbers are. So it's not an actual benchmark. This is user submitted data. So it's, in some ways it can be kind of funky. Some ways, I guess you could kind of take it as far as more of a real world scenario where some of these people, they've got an old machine they've been using for a year or two or more, and they put a 2060 Super into it and upgraded their processor, but they still got that original operating system installed with all the flaws and the usage that comes with it, background services, extra software, all that kind of stuff, right? So that's kind of what you can kind of glean, like a percentage of that, like 1 to 2%. You could kind of lean into real world examples with any of these things. So let's go ahead and take a gander at the 2070 Super. they say a 122 effective FPS for Grand Theft Auto 5. And if we go back to the 2060 and we compare them, so there's the 2070 and there's the 2060. We click the check marks and we get our compare. You can see the 2070 over the 2060 is a 12% performance effective FPS. So that's where their numbers kind of go up. You can see all the other kind of cool stuff in here, like average user benchmarks and overclock benchmarks and lots of different things that they use to gauge this number. Alright, so this is like a quality or a performance of the card comparing to some weird baseline, right? So some baseline that they have, it's a 98.5% increase over something, and this is 112% performance increase over something. So that's kind of roughly how this site works. Don't take it, like I said, take it with a grain of salt. Don't take it at face value and say this is what you're going to get. It's just examples. But it's really handy when you use this in conjunction with the other thing I want to talk about that a lot of people don't seem to read. I have made a sticky post on the subreddit called Some Foundational Builds to Start From. Now what this is I have saved a few builds that are just, they're meant for foundational building blocks. So they are CPUs and GPUs within certain price points that will give you, certain level of performance. So you've got a sub $700 build. There's an AMD, there's an Intel one, there's one that has a micro ATX with a 580 in it, and this has a 1660 Super, blah blah blah. These builds, I'll just open this one here for example. We've got your processor, motherboard, some RAM, a hard drive, and then you got your GPU and the power supply that will power the GPU. You take these and you choose the edit, and then you can actually swap out parts, upgrade, downgrade, you add your case, you do all that stuff, add your operating system or a monitor or whatever else you need to build your machine, and it will give you a starting point. So if I go back to the builds and I say anything over 1,000, I've got a 2070 Super. So this is basically the exact same thing with a 2070 Super with a 3600 in it, is $1,000. That's just a starting point. If you want to build something with a 2070 Super, go ahead and do this. I think I have an Intel, a 9400F in here. I think it's this one. Yeah. So here's the 9400F. This is roughly in the same performance range as the 3600 for the Ryzen people. And this is a little bit cheaper of a card. You could actually drop this even lower if you get rid of the NVIDIA and put a 580 in. You could get it even lower because it's only like $189, $170, something like that for a card. So you'd be saving yourself $30, getting it closer to that $600 mark. But yeah, things like that. That's what this is for. This is to help you build your machine and give you something to start from without starting from scratch and going through every individual thing. You can go and you can add and remove things. The compatibility on the PC part picker will actually help you only see compatible hardware for, pretty much anything. There are some caveats in the posts and maybe the wiki. I can't remember if I put it in there. I do have the limitations, or some of the limitations of it. It might even be in the rules of the PC part picker compatibility. Things like your fan height. Some boards that, like say a B450, yes, some boards do need a BIOS update to support 3rd gen Ryzen chips, for example. However, there are certain motherboards that allow you to update the BIOS without having to you don't even have to have RAM, a GPU, or a CPU plugged into the board to actually do the BIOS update. It will just flash itself. So things like that, it can't really detect because it just goes by a series. So like a B450 or a B350 or something like that. So anyways, that's kind of all I wanted to talk about today. I hope it helps somebody who's trying to build a machine. There's a lot of people doing this. I don't know. It's a lot of work to go through these things and answer the same question over and over again. Try to search, people. Just try to search. Go through the pages. You'll see someone with the exact same build as you. I pretty much guarantee it. Anyways, talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching, and stay on the sub, and we will see you in a bit.